Shalawama, I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. I do apologize for being late, but we're going to get started and make it do what it do, y'all. We're going to make it do what it do. We are in the Astrotheology video session. Okay, we are in the chapter called The Unjust Judge. The Unjust Judge. This is the Devil's Pulpit, written by Reverend Robert Taylor. Okay, his credential is BA. I'm assuming that's Bachelor of Art. I don't know. This book was compiled in 1857. All right, from a series of lectures he gave in the 18 teens and 20s and probably 30s. So this is an old book, real old book, y'all. And it's difficult reading, but we're making our way through it. All right. The chapter scripture again is Luke chapter 18, verse 1. Luke chapter 18, verse 1, the unjust judge. And it reads, "And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought to always to pray." So this parable, what was the purpose of this parable? So that men should always pray. That's the whole purpose, okay, of the parable. He spoke the parable because men should always pray. "And not to faint, saying, there was in a city a judge, which feared not," capital God, "neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto the judge, saying, Avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward he said within himself, Though I fear not, capital God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me." All right, so now in review of yesterday's video, the judge did not give this woman justice because of justice. He gave her justice because he cares more about his own comforts. So he gave her justice because he got tired of her. Okay, so he went out and avenged her. The proper thing for him to do, right, would be to give her justice based upon justice itself, not because she made his life hard. Y'all follow me? A judge is supposed to give justice for the sake of justice, right? And not to avenge or give a judgment to get somebody away from him or to increase his comfort, right? That's the point of this that the author makes in the next several pages, all right? So we stopped on page, give me 1 second, y'all. That's all the review I'm gonna do, okay? And we're gonna get right into this because I'm late, but I think that's enough, okay? Y'all can go back and watch yesterday's video to get everything, all right? You can go back and watch yesterday's video to get everything. Let me get the banner together here. What's up with our banner? The more I use this, the more comfortable I get with it. The more comfortable I'm getting with StreamYard. So it's getting a little bit easier for me. All right. Okay, so let me find our page. Give me 1 second. Oh, I know. Sorry about that. I know the page. Let me share it. I had it prepared and I forgot. It's already prepared. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. So we're on page 116. All right, we're on page 116. So everybody should, just as a reminder, everyone should download the PDF. Again, this is the Devil's Pulpit. This is about astrotheology. So the title of the book is The Devil's Pulpit, or Astrotheological Sermons by the Reverend Robert Taylor, BA. Y'all can download this book for free. So y'all should really go get it. I mean, you cannot beat this for free, okay? You can download it for free. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me drink some water first, y'all. So download it for free. This is an incredible book, right? And this video series that I'm doing right now is so important because this is a hard read. I think most people would not be able to read this book and understand what the author is saying. But I'm reading it for you and explaining as best I can. If you are a Christian and you want to have your viewpoint made, you're welcome to come into the live stream. Everybody, I'm asking to put your comments and questions in the chat. Even your opinions, put it in the chat to help other people in the future, okay? The purpose of this is education, not indoctrination. Not here to make anybody change their mind. It's education, okay? So make sure y'all do your responsibility in the chat, all right? So give me 1 second again. This is not meant to try to make you change your religion or change your mind. This is solely to educate you so that you can be familiar with this topic and make your own decisions, because this is a hot topic, right? This is a hot topic, right? So here we go, page 116. Neither could it have been delivered or devised before the times of the general prevalence of that most wicked notion of election and reprobation. Since his whole argument is the argument of, we reread that page, y'all. So we're on page 117, my bad. We are here. You look at the cursor. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second. Let me go to the screen. Okay. So we're here, page 117. I'm going to start reading there, okay? As thus, sirs, where isn't that the Son, S-O-N, of man, in the showing of the text itself, was to be seen? Let me repeat that. As thus, sirs, where is it? Where is it that this Son of Man, that's S-O-N, that's referring to the Christ figure in the gospel, in the showing of the text itself? Okay, so that's the text we read earlier, right? Where is it, or he in the text itself, was to be seen? Quote, coming in the clouds of heaven, end quote. Then, in the name of capital G-O-D, where else should we look for him but in the clouds of heaven? And when is he to be seen coming in the clouds of heaven? Immediately after the days shall have been shortened, is the answer to that question. Then immediately after the days shall have been shortened, but when they persecute you in this city, flee ye to another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. That's the S-O-N of man. All right, Matthew chapter 10, verse 23. Here again, you have the speaker, Christ, speaking of another. Have y'all ever thought about that? The speaker is Christ At Matthew chapter 10, verse 23, this Son of Man coming, that's the Christ speaking, but he's talking about someone else. Have y'all ever thought about that? Here again, you have the speaker, Christ, speaking of another as contradistinguished from himself. In other words, he did not say, I will come on a cloud. Let me read it again. Matthew chapter 10, verse 23. Immediately after the days shall have been shortened is the answer to the question. Then immediately after the days shall have been shortened. Now here's the quote from Matthew chapter 10, verse 23. But when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel until the Son of Man come to be. So I've always taken the Son of Man as being the Christ figure talking about himself. But the author is saying the Christ figure is not talking about himself. He says here again, you have the speaker, Christ, speaking of another as contradistinguished from himself, who was not then come, but who was to come before the saints should have gone over the cities of Israel. Gone over the cities? Gone over them, sirs. And then here's that in Greek. And we see the quote. Ye shall not have finished them. All right. So this was an important part of the doctrine in the Christianity organization that I was involved in. They spent a lot of time going door to door and all of that kind of stuff. All right, next sentence. And who and what were these? Who were to flee from city to city, but not to finish all the cities before the coming of the Son of Man? That's the S-O-N. So who? All right. Now in the Christian organization I was in, they took that to mean the congregation going knocking on people's doors. They wouldn't finish knocking on everybody's door in the world before the Christ figure would come back. That was their doctrine. But let me ask you this. What is the doctrine on this verse in your camp or in your church, in your assembly? What's the doctrine? I just shared mine. What's your doctrine? Or did you all even deal with this in your religion or organization that you're involved in, however y'all refer to yourself, right? And then why is there such a variance? Why isn't it all the same? But anyway, let's continue. And what sort of cities were these, which these persecuted saints were to go over? But so as never to go beyond them, never to be out of one or other of these cities. Okay, so he asks, these are legitimate questions. So remember, the author said in a couple pages ago, we discussed it, we went over it in yesterday's video. The author said, apply critical thinking. He said, apply criticism, meaning doubt everything and ask questions. Okay? So now, these are legitimate questions. Let's see what the next paragraph says. Okay? We're expecting some critical thinking to come from the author, right? Some good questions. All right, so let's go. Or as again, this mystical astrologer saith to Nicodemus, quote, no man has ascended up into heaven, but he that comes down from heaven, even the Son of Man, that's the S-O-N, Son of Man, which is in heaven. Okay, so I hope y'all caught that. No man hath ascended up into heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. Oh, say your evangelical preachers, the most ignorant men of their own profession on the face of the earth, quote, it was our blessed Savior himself who was the Son of Man. And while he was conversing with Nicodemus, he was in heaven at the same time. So, a very clever trick that, like St. Francis Xavier, be contrived to be aboard two ships at once. Did y'all catch that? So let's read that quote again. No man hath ascended up into heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. So the Christ figure is here saying that the Son of Man was in heaven at the time he spoke this verse. All right. So the author is saying, how can the Christ figure on earth be the Son of Man when the Christ figure himself has just said that the Son of Man was in heaven at that time? Right. So in other words, he's in two places at the same time. That's a good point, right? So we have to give him a check on his critical thinking right there. All right. Well, let's continue. Next paragraph. But if our evangelical preachers would leave their choused and insulted hearers in possession of the faculty of reason, all one reason that ever was in the world would say that it was, okay, so let's go to the next page, would say that it was, all right, utterly preposterous for a person to have spoken of the Son of Man who was in heaven, who had mean that it was himself sitting in his armchair and smoking his pipe all the while that he was in heaven. Y'all see that? So he's saying that the Christ figure is, on earth and in heaven at the same time. How can that be? That's what he's saying, y'all. All right. So what do you think about that? Okay. Do you think that's blasphemy? Or do you think that looking at what the text says, actually it does say that, although it goes against what you've been taught and what we've been taught in the churches, right? The Christ figure is in two places at the same time. Is that possible? Or do you have to believe in magic? Okay. So give me 1 second, y'all. Let me check the chat. All right. Appalachian Joel writes, gratitude for the lessons, Doc. My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. Yashe Elkanah Yasharala says, can it also be reference to Enoch who went up? Okay, all right. I would like to see someone answer that, actually. Yashe also says, by the way, Enoch is valid. Yashe continues, Yahushua is a spirit, John 6:63, who can and does manifest in the flesh. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Yashe. So, Yashe, let me ask you, are you saying that the Christ figure in the Gospels can literally be in two places at one time? He can be in heaven and on earth at the same time? Him and Pel says, shalom, 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 prosperity to all, Yasharel. All right, good to see you. Good to see you, him and Pel. Good to see you, excuse me, Yashe. Good to see you, Appalachian L. Appalachian Joel L says, is heaven the Jacob's ladder up the spinal cord? Okay, let's see. Let me see if we have anything else. All right. Yash, okay, I think I got, okay, so we have a new comment. Yashe says, well, we ourselves are both spirit and flesh, as in hue man. Okay. Appalachian Joel L says, to our cerebellum and onwards to our pineal. So our pineal gland, right? All right. Excellent. Excellent comments. Excellent comments. Okay, so let me get back to it, y'all. So where are we? Where do we stand? Let's see. Yashe says, without the animated spirit, the flesh fails to exist. Okay, so again, the author is taking issue. The author is taking issue with Matthew chapter 10, verse 23, which reads, "But when they persecute you in this city, flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come." So the author is saying that the text reads that the Christ figure is on earth, but the Son of Man is in heaven. Therefore, the Son of Man and the Christ figure are two different people. That's his point. Let's continue. Page 118. That's his point, rather. So let's continue. I'm just going to read from the top, y'all. Utterly preposterous for a person to have spoken of the Son of Man who was in heaven, who had meant that it was himself sitting in his armchair and smoking his pipe all the while that he was in heaven. Okay, so the author is saying it's not possible for the Christ figure to be up in heaven and on earth at the same time. Okay, that's his point. And that if it was in heaven that this Son of Man was, and in the clouds of heaven that he was to make his appearance, it must be nowhere else but in the heavens, even in the visible cloudy heavens, that we are to look for him. Okay, so y'all see where he's going already, right? It looks like he's building up for a celestial presence, okay? Rather than a heavens, like a spirit world presence, but a celestial heavens. In other words, he's somewhere with the constellations. But let's see if this is so. Next paragraph. But we have a further clue to this mystery. The mystery is, where is he? Where is the Son of Man? In heaven, on earth? Where? Okay. But we have a further clue to this mystery, which unravels it beyond the mistake of ignorance itself. The epithet, the Son of Man, that's the S-O-N, is found accompanied with the term, absolutely and literally defining what is meant by the Son of Man. Okay, so he looks like he's going to go into etymology, right? That's what it looks like. Looks like he's going into etymology. So let's check it out. All right. The epithet, the Son of Man. So we're gonna get into the Son of Man, is found accompanied with the term absolutely and literally. See, when we see literally, we know what? Etymology, right? And literally defining what was meant by the Son of Man. In other words, you can use the etymology concepts, principles to find out the meaning of a text. Let's continue. It is, quote, the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, end quote. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. Now, there are but 12 signs in heaven. Okay, so 12 signs in heaven. It appears to me that he's talking about the zodiac signs, right? And therefore, since he's talking about 12 zodiac signs, we now know that the location is going to be the stars, the constellations. Okay, so we're still in the physical world, scholars. Still in the physical world. The Son of Man, according to what I'm seeing so far, the author is alluding to the fact that you can use etymology to determine that the location of this Son of Man is in the physical world, in the stars, with the constellations. Those are physical, not in some spiritual place, But let's keep reading and let the author tell us for himself, instead of me and us trying to figure out what he's going to say. Let's let him speak for himself. Here we go. Now, there are but 12 signs in the heaven, and this sign of the Son of Man, that's S-O-N, Son of Man, is further defined as coming immediately after the end of the world. Then, of course, it could come nowhere else but at the beginning of the new world. Now, that's really good logic, right? That's very good logic. So we have to give him a check on that. Let's continue. Next paragraph. But this sign of the Son of Man is still further defined. Okay, so the first key was that the sign would come at the end of the world, and therefore at the beginning of the new world, or the next world to come, right? That's the first. Make a mental note. But this sign of the Son of Man is still further defined as having days in it. The next key, the sign has days in it, okay? Or in him. Days in it, or days in him. Or of and concerning or pertaining to him or it. Keep these important facts in mind. Okay, next paragraph. Quote, the days come when ye, let me repeat that. The days come when ye shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man. That's the S-O-N. And shall not see it. That's quoting from Luke chapter 17. All right, so now we see his evidence. He's talking about days, right? Next paragraph. But what is more, this self-same Son of Man seems to have been as well known under the Old Testament as under the New Testament. So he has a reputation. We can read about him, learn about him in the Old Testament. All right. As the prophet Daniel saw him. So Daniel saw the Son of Man. When and where, and as exactly as you may, every one of you see him yourselves. All right, so let's see. We're quoting from Daniel chapter 7 now. Quote, in the visions of the night, end quote. All right, so it looks like the author is saying what part of the day? The nighttime part of the day is when you see the Son of Man. Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because during the day, you really cannot see any stars. You see the constellations at night, okay? But let's continue. Let's let the author speak. Attend ye then to the visions of the night, that is, study astronomy. Attend ye to the visions of the night, that is, study astronomy. Look on the immense expanse of the starry heavens. The starry heavens is where you'll find the 12 zodiacs. And there you shall see the sign of the Son of Man, that is the S-O-N, Son of Man. That is the sign Aquarius. Everybody should remember Aquarius is the water bearer. The sign of January. Okay, so the beginning of the end of one time and the beginning of another. They are starting the year now in January. So that's the end of one year, the beginning of another. Okay. You look up in the sky at night on a particular day in January, you look up in the sky at night, you see the constellation Aquarius. That's what he's saying, at least as the way I understand it. If someone else has a different view, you're welcome to come into the live stream, put it in the chat, and I'll try to get the link to you. I'll figure out how to get the link to you, okay? So let's continue. The sign Aquarius, the sign of January, which you cannot go over the 12 cities of Israel without coming to. Okay, y'all see that? So you have to go through these 12 zodiac signs, and you're going to have to get to Aquarius. All right, let's continue. Which comes immediately after the days have been shortened. Y'all see that? The days are shortened in wintertime, right? And they reach their shortest point between December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, right? We read about that earlier. All right, now let's continue. Which made us desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man. Y'all got that? Everybody see that? The days were the nighttime hours were so long for so many months, the whole winter, right? And then they max out between December 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Now you really want to see that sun. This is what he's talking about. You really want to see the sun. All right. That's what he's saying the verse is referring to. Okay. Let's continue. It reads, let me start from the beginning. I had to take a sip of water, y'all. That is the sign of Aquarius, the sign of January, which you can not go over the 12 cities of Israel. So he's saying the 12 cities of Israel, again, are the zodiac, without coming to, which comes immediately after the days have been shortened, which made us desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man when they are getting longer again. Y'all see that? The days get longer again on December 25th, which comes immediately after the end of the world. Y'all got it? All right. So they went all the way through the 11 signs until they got to Aquarius. Okay. Now the days are getting longer. Again, I said it earlier. It was the end of the winter, or it was the end of that rotation, right? I won't go into it because I already said it. All right. So let's go back. Which made us desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man when they are getting longer again, which comes immediately after the end of the world, which ends in December. So that the world ends in December, and which opens the new year, i.e., the new heavens and the new earth, wherein dwell righteousness. Y'all got that? Which ends in December. So the old world ends in December. Okay. The sun reaches its lowest point in December, and then the new world begins. All right. So let's continue. Actually, I kind of like this. I kind of like this. The new heavens and the new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. All right. I kind of like what he did there. What do y'all think about that? Let me check the chat. Give me 1 second. Let me check the chat. Okay. Yashe writes, there are other ancient manuscripts that suggest there are some sort of man-made type of people, like hybrids or something. Yeah, I can agree with that. Definitely. You also see that in Genesis chapter 1, actually, Yashe. We can reference Genesis in the beginning, how these were created. Okay. Genesis chapter 1, we see that. If you go back to Genesis chapter 1, there is a firmament that separates the heavens from the earth atmosphere. Okay, yeah. Shalom, all I have to run off. This is Yashe saying he's got to go and do a 16-hour shift so I can get my car back to running condition. All right, Yashe, I definitely appreciate you coming here and participating. All praises to the Most High. I appreciate you being willing to share all this knowledge with us. Much appreciated. And I'll see you tomorrow. Sorry, y'all, I'm losing my voice for some reason. So let's keep it going. let's keep it going. All right. Okay, so let's get back to it. All right, so here we are. Page 119. Let me make sure we're still on the right page. Okay, so let's begin reading. Page 119. And here too have we the meaning of those eternal riddles about eating the flesh and drinking the blood. Y'all know what he's talking about now, right? Of the Son of Man. Here too have we the meaning of those eternal riddles about eating the flesh, cannibalism, and drinking the blood, right? That goes against the New Testament, don't it? Of the Son of Man, which from the Ganges of the Nile, from the Nile to the Thames, through Brahminical, Egyptian, pagan, and Christian superstition, was the universal catachresis of language, for a mystery of which the meaning was never any more than that ordinary eating and drinking of the fruits of the earth, which flow to us from the fructifying of Aquarius. Okay, so he's talking about the Aquarius, the water bearer, right? He's talking about Aquarius, the water bearer, putting up water or pouring out water so that the plant life can grow. Okay, so Him-Impale writes, I'm beginning to wonder, are the scriptures as a whole about astrology? Even in the first covenant, Yasharal was led by a cloud by day and fire by night, and they talk about Sabbaths and new moons. A lot of people make this argument, Him-Impale. So a lot of people make that argument. So now let's continue. Okay. Forgot where I was. Okay, so we're in the last sentence of that paragraph. It being thus a natural and not a supernatural truth that unless we eat the flesh and drink the blood of the Son of Man, we have no life in us. And what is a parable? And what is a parable but something represented to be the imagination? Let me read that again. But a something represented to the imagination, which has no reality. It is a throw by the side or apart from the line of truth into the regions of fantasy and fiction. There are 44 parables in the course of the 4 Gospels. All right, I didn't know that. There are 44 parables in the course, or in all of the Gospels together, there are 44 parables. That's what he's saying, okay? Excuse me. So let me find my place again. All right. Now, what is the nature of a work that contains admitted parables, but evidently a work of fiction and imagination? Well, that's a good point, right? A work in which one thing is said and another thing is meant. All right, that's a good point. And they actually say it's a parable themselves, right? In the text. But parables, our persons tell us, are easy and familiar modes of instructions, graciously adopted by our blessed Savior in order to convey his divine lessons more clearly to the mind. This is what the religious people tell, okay? That's what the religious people tell as a definition of parables. And they are so. Let me repeat that. Are they so? And did he therefore speak in parables in order to assist our comprehension and to enable us? Let's read the quote. Oh, yes, the person says. Only it's rather awkward when we find himself saying, quote, therefore speak I to them in parables, that seeing they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear but not understand. Did y'all get that? So the definition that the religious people give about a parable, that is supposed to make something more easily understood, is contradicting what the Christ figure said. The Christ figure said he speaks in parables, therefore, quote, therefore speak I to them in parables, that seeing that they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear but not understand. Okay, so there's a contradiction, right? The clergy's definition of parable contradicts what the Christ figure's purpose and intent of speaking in parables was. All right, so the parable was to make it so that people could not understand, whereas the church leaders are saying that parables make it easy for people to understand. Contradiction. That's an excellent point. Excellent point. Next paragraph. Oh, what a clear way of conveying divine instruction to the mind. This accounts for Christians being such wonderfully clever boys as they all are. The greater proficiency they make in the study of divine things, the less they know of them. The more they get on, the more they get off. They go to school to learn ignorance. They'd have known more if they had been taught less. So that should the society of promoting Christian knowledge have all the success they aim at, we shall be parabolized till we shall, quote, know nothing but Jesus Christ and him crucified. And nobody will ever again get into danger of hellfire for calling his brother a fool. I think this paragraph for me, this topic that we just read about the parables, for me, this so far in the whole book, for me personally, this stands out the most, right? Because in the religion I was in, they relied on this stuff heavily. And these parables, according to academics and religious leaders, what they're saying the purpose of these parables is contradicted by what the Christ figure said his intent was to using these parables. So this is for me, powerful point. I don't know what y'all think. Put it in the chat, what you think about the point that the author makes here. Okay, so now let me change the page. We're on page 120 now, y'all. Page 120. So we're doing good. We're really doing good. I'm happy that y'all are here. Because not everybody can do this, y'all. Not everybody can sit here and go through a reading and be disciplined enough to sit here and learn rather than wanting to be entertained and not think. Okay. And the whole reason we're in this shape we're in right now is because people don't want to think. So I congratulate and commend you for being here. And I do appreciate you spending the evening with me, especially being here willing to think. Willing to think. Okay. Very, very important. All right. Next paragraph, page 20. This parabolical, hyperbolical, or rather diabolical mode of conveying instruction, that is parables, once adopted all notion of history or of historical fidelity, is at a sheer end forever. Okay, so is it? All right, we're going to see. Here are persons, speeches, actions, and characters set before us with as much relief, distinctiveness, and apparent reality as the broadest features of the gospel narrative. And yet all this distinctiveness, apparent reality, and even historical probability notwithstanding, so even with all of this stuff, all is pure creation of imagination and fantasy or fancy. And there is not a word of truth in it from beginning to end. So that's a very, very strong claim, right? Let's see if he backs it up. And while any man say then that there is any redeeming reason whatsoever why the whole gospel narrative should not itself be held to be altogether a parable of the same parabolic and diabolical character, as so much and so very many parts of it must necessarily be admitted to be. All right, so he's making another strong assertion, right? Well, two. The first assertion is that the gospel is all a fairy tale, right? The whole thing is nothing but a parable. His second assertion is that not only is it a made-up story, but it's diabolical in character. Now, remember, the author has brought out information in earlier pages that the tetragrammaton is actually Satan, and that the tetragrammaton is cloven-footed. Y'all remember those verses we went over several videos ago? All right. And he also brought out that the Christ figure, remember, the unjust servant and the unjust judge. Okay. So he called in the question of the Christ figure and the deity of the, but if I missed that, go back and watch yesterday's video. Okay, this is no spooky stuff. All right, this is not going against anybody's religion. Go through the video, read the book, and you'll see what he's talking about. Okay, so now let's continue. Next paragraph. At any rate, we have in the case before us two very different and distinct authorities in challenge upon our credence. For first, we have the capital Lord, whoever he was, telling us a tale. So that must be the Christ figure, right? I guess. Highly probable in itself, which nothing hinders from being true and telling it as a truth, while the reporter of the tale obstrudes his impertinent judgment to tell us that it was not true, but a parable. Okay, so I'm getting so who's the capital Lord and who's telling the parable? I'm thinking he's saying that the Christ figure is telling the parable. Well, let's read on. I'm confused right now. And whereas the speaker of the parable, if a parable it were, has not told us what the end or gist of it was, the reporter has taken upon himself to supply this deficiency and to give it a moral, which may have been the very reverse of the moral intended. Okay, now I understand. It appears that he's talking about the person who actually wrote the letter, right? So I think this is from Matthew. So the writer of that gospel, that's who he's talking about. All right, so capital Lord would be the Father, and the speaker of the parable would be the Christ figure. The other person would be the writer, okay? And he's saying that the writer took it upon himself to give it a moral meaning, but the speaker never actually gave a gist to it, right? Because remember the Christ figure. But anyway, I'm confused. Maybe we can clarify it in the next paragraphs. For had the gist on it been to hold up the character of the unjust judge to our hatred rather than to our respect, as exhibition of the character of the devil, rather than of the capital God, and had the moral ought been just exactly that men who fell under the government of such unjust governors as heed not the justice and reasonableness of the people's petitions, but act only for caprice, but only act from caprice and tyranny, ought not to pray always, but to pray no more. Okay, so what he's saying is that because the deity commended the unjust servant for robbing his master. Y'all remember that story? We went over it. And the unjust judge, right, who refused to give justice, but finally did so because that woman, she was bugging him to death. So that's immoral. Okay, this is what he's talking about. All right, this is what he's talking about. So let's continue. But take the power into their own hands, play the Paris game upon their ruthless oppressors, and hurl them from their fortified authority. In other words, get rid of these people, right? Get rid of them because they're immoral. Would not that have been as good a moral, as honorable to the moralist, and as instructive to ourselves? So in other words, the author is saying that the deity should have condemned the unjust judge, right? For not giving justice when the woman first asked for it. Okay, that would have been a better moral story. This is what the author is saying. And the deity should have condemned the unjust servant because he robbed or he stole from his master. Y'all see that? The author is saying that would have been a better story, and that's more moral than the way they tell it in the Gospels, right? The unjust servant who robbed or stole from his master was commended. Okay, so this is what the author is talking about. Anyway, let's continue. At the bottom of the paragraph. Oh, nope, we're on page 121, the last paragraph in the paragraph. So much for the critical view of the parable. So that's his critical view, y'all. We just went over it. So I won't repeat it. But that's very interesting. He makes sense. I agree with him. We could now to the moral, all right, which inspire impertinence has obliged us to submit to. Okay, so we're going to deal with the moral. Next paragraph. The moral on it is, so now he's going to look at this from a moral point of view, to represent the character of the capital God as that of an unjust judge, restrained by no consideration of justice, equity, mercy, or truth, but chuckling and glorifying in avowed injustice and most flagrant wickedness. Quote, now, though I fear not capital God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her of her adversary, lest by her continuing coming to me, she weary me. All right, so he wasn't concerned about justice at all. There is a capital Lord, capital God for you. In other words, the deity doesn't care about justice or righteousness. And shall we wonder that our lowercase gods and lowercase lords on earth, with this example of the divine character before them, should act on the same principle and deem it most lowercase god like and divine, to be indifferent to the rights or wrongs of the people, and act only in consultation of their own idleness, caprice, or humor. Now, we do see this in practice. We do see this in practice, don't we? When we deal with these religious preachers and judges and lawyers, totally corrupt. So the author, I agree with his line of reasoning, okay, that we went over the last few paragraphs. And I also observe in my life that all of these religious people, the vast majority of them are corrupt, the worst kinds of people. In fact, I was listening to a video, and it was about narcissism. And the doctor pointed out that religion or the priesthood is one of the professions that attracts the most narcissists. So it's religion and surgeons. These attract the most narcissists. Okay. But anyway, let's continue. Y'all know a narcissist doesn't feel your pain. They have no empathy. That's why I brought that up. All right, so let's continue. Next paragraph. Had a man sat down to try to hit out a scheme for making tyrants, of one half of mankind and slaves of the other, to make the world as wicked as wickedness itself, and to set up priestly power on the overthrow of everything that is noble in sentiment, just in principle, or generous in action. Could he have hit on anything else so mischievous, so wicked as this? He's talking about Christianity, right? And the priest. Now, remember, you have to throw those judges in there, right? You have to throw the lawyers in there, because we went through this in the previous parts of pages. But the morals on it is, quote, that men ought always to pray. Why in that verse does it say, but men ought always to pray? Well, let's continue reading. Quote, that men ought always to pray and not to faint, end quote. To pray, as the apostle says, without ceasing, to keep it up day and night, to wrestle in prayer, to bother the everlasting, capital God, out of his everlasting life, right? In other words, give him no rest with your prayers. Not to trust to his goodness, his equity, his wisdom, or any of that sort of stuff, but to stick to him, to give it him, to gripe, to tug at him, to sicken him, till at last, in self-defense, the prayer-worried tyrant, that's the deity, the prayer-worried tyrant will start, as if the fleas bit him, from his uneasy couch, and to comply with their desires, for no other reason than because, as he might say, damn the fleas, how they bite. Now, that was something I had a problem with when I was in Christianity. Why you have to beg the deity before he'll do something to you? Why you got to pray over and over and over again, and he's going to sit there and listen to you pray over and over and over? I always had a problem with that, before he's going to do something for you. So the author here makes a good point, and I can relate to this in my own experience with Christianity. It's a very, very good point, because it's not a loving thing to me. Like, for example, if I had a child or even one of my siblings, right, or even a parent, I make them call me, make them text me, and I don't respond. They're calling me, texting me, asking other people to contact me. I wouldn't do that to somebody I care about, let alone somebody I love. I wouldn't do that to somebody I didn't care about, right? So why is the deity, if this deity is a righteous deity, talk about the deity of the New Testament, if he's righteous, why doesn't he just give you justice? Why you got to go through begging and texting, calling, right? All this praying, asking other people to pray for you, other people texting, so I always had a problem with that. This was when I was a young man too, y'all. But what do y'all feel about this? What do y'all think about this? So far, where do you stand with the author? Is the author making legitimate points? Can you relate to the author? Is the author flat out wrong? Okay. Does faith have a role in this? Okay. Do you have to abandon your reason, your intellect? Is the author's intellect off? Is his reason off? Put it in the chat and let me read it out. Say what you got to say. Put it in the chat. All right, let's continue. Let's continue. I got to find my spot. All right. But he did make some really, really good points that I can relate to. All right. So we're in the second from the last sentence at the bottom of the page 121 on the right. Nor is this any sort of caricature. I wish for humanity's sake that it were so, but 'tis the very language of the prayer of the patriarch Jacob, quote, I will not let thee go unless thou bless me, end quote. And in the Catholic Manual of Devotion are the words of a prayer, than which no words of prayer were ever more reasonable. Quote, O capital Lord, capital God, if thine own goodness will not induce thee to have mercy upon me, my importunity shall. So again, calling into question the righteousness of this deity, right? All right, but do y'all agree with this? Is the reasoning sound? I'm not asking if it agrees with your doctrine. I'm asking if it agrees with your critical thinking mind, with your analytical thinking mind. Next paragraph. Let me change the page, y'all. So we're on page 122 now. So not if it agrees with your doctrine. I'm sure it does not. But does it agree with your critical thinking mind? So let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. Do you agree with this, your critical thinking mind? Okay. So the first paragraph of page 22 reads, you see, after all, that there's a way of getting the better of omnipotence. Though he stands out a long while, he'll strike at last. Quote, and shall not capital G-O-D avenge his own elect? Let me repeat that. And shall not capital G-O-D avenge his own elect? So are you one of the elect? Do you know one of the elect? And shall not capital G-O-D avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, end quote, says the divine teacher. And shall men on earth think they can employ their time better than the angels in heaven spend their time? Let me repeat that. And shall men on earth think they can employ their time better than the angels in heaven spend their eternity? Or than the cherubims and seraphims, which continually do cry? Or than those pretty dogs with four faces, which are before the throne of capital G-O-D, and rest not day nor night, crying, holy, holy, holy. All right, so he's making some good points. Shall not capital G-O-D avenge his own elect? So why you need to pray all day, every day for weeks and months, right? Why you need to ask other people to pray for you? This is the point the author is trying to make. Okay, why it takes so long. Okay, let's continue. Next paragraph. Nay, and 'tis none other than the gravest of our Protestant divines, who most gravely assure us that the prayers of Christians would never be unanswered if they were but continued long enough. Now, y'all know if someone says they're going to do something for you and it take them longer than, let's say, a week, some of y'all be mad within 2-3 days, right? You'd think that they lied, right? You'd think, okay, well, they lied to me, right? So the author is saying, why are not we applying that same type of logic to the deity? Why he get 3 months, 5 years, 10 years, a lifetime of not answering your prayer, right? But your brother, who you can see, you give him 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, you don't want to talk to him ever again in life because you say he's a liar. You're offended by him not being there for you. So the author is using his critical analytical mind, but do you agree? What are your thoughts? What is your analytical mind telling you? That's the thing to think about. If you want to be generous, put it in the chat so other people can benefit from what you have in your head, your experience in life, right? Share your wisdom. Don't be stingy. All right, let's continue. Many a good batch of bread has been spoiled by letting the oven get cool too soon. And many an effectual, fervent prayer has been rendered ineffectual by being given up just at the last moment. When other long pull and a strong pull and the pull altogether would have pulled the old fellow into compliance. He can stand 2 or 3 importunate widows single-handed But when two or three are gathered together in his name, they get him in the midst of them and do what they please with him. Okay, all right. So I don't know what to make of that, but let's continue. But the most frightful part of the moral is that it is never necessary that what is prayed for should be anything reasonable for capital God to grant, or that there should be any sort of merit or desert on the part of the person who prays, but always and in every instance, just exactly contrary. The more wicked the petitioner is, the more acceptable to capital God. Wow, that's another strong claim. The more wicked the person who's praying is, the more acceptable to capital God, and the more unreasonable and unjust the petition or the prayer, the more likely to be granted. Okay, well, let's see if he proves it. Next paragraph. Let's see if the author can prove what he's saying. Let the greatest murderer and thief on earth ask capital God to give him a crown of glory and eternity of happiness. 'Twould be granted in a thrice. That's a good point, y'all. That's a really good point, huh? These people who commit heinous crimes like murder, rape, right? Stealing somebody's whole life savings, okay? They get to repent, and then all that is forgiven and wiped away. That's what the author is saying, right? These are some of the worst things you can do to people. But it's all wiped away. That's what he's saying. But you get somebody who really hasn't done anything. Well, let's let the author speak. He continues. So the old woman, the importunate widow, only wanted a bit of vengeance. She wanted justice, right? Sometimes justice stings. She wanted to pay off an old grudge, to have her spite out against somebody that had displeased her. All right, somebody did her wrong and she wanted justice, right? She had only to pester the Almighty Judge with her everlasting quote, avenge me of mine adversary, end quote. And the Almighty, without inquiring what her adversary had done or what he might say in his defense, has him hanged. So in other words, in that parable, the judge never called in that person who did that old lady wrong. He never had a trial. He just had him hang based upon what the old lady said, right? So that's not justice. Okay, so he had him hung off at hand to find out perhaps that it was a lie that the woman told him after the execution. Y'all see that? The parable never said that that judge cross-examined the woman and interviewed the person she said did him wrong. She just had that guy punished, right? That's not justice, okay? That's not justice. Thus, the apostle lays it down as a rule that if any man sin, we have an advocate in the Father. Let him pick pockets, let him cut throats, or so. So in other words, Paul is saying, you can do what you want to do. You can commit as bad, as terrible a sin as you want, right? And you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. This is what the author is saying. Let's read the quote here. Quote, there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath that flood, washed out their guilty stains. Yeah, well, okay, all right. All murders, all rape, cleansed with the blood of the deity. That's what the author is alluding to by writing this here. Next paragraph. But if he be no sinner, y'all got that? We just looked at the rapist, the murderer, so on. Okay, he got forgiveness big time. Now here's the case where this no sinner. But if he be no sinner, if he be an honest man, and conduct himself with moral propriety, he might as well whistle to the winds and say a prayer either O capital G-O-D or devil. So let's see him develop. Let's see him develop this. Next paragraph. So in showing of the story, such as it is, J.C., the righteous, might continue all night in prayer to capital G-O-D and prayed in agony, but prayed in vain. Quote, because he had done no violence, neither was deceit found in his mouth. So y'all see what he's saying? They're saying the Christ figure was a sinless man. Okay? He was a sinless man. All right, let's continue. But Saul of Tarsus, now remember what happened to the Christ figure. He was beaten and eventually murdered, right? But Saul, and he was sinless, but Saul of Tarsus, the most deceitful thief and murderous villain that ever escaped unhanged, the chief of sinners, a blasphemer, right? Remember, according to the Gospels, blaspheme is an unforgivable sin. Y'all see that? Right? Paul was a blasphemer, a persecutor, and injurious, had only to pop up his marrow bones, and all the miraculous machinery of heaven was put into instant requisition. The Almighty jumped out of bed in the middle of the night and called up all the family of heaven with his hue and cry, quote, arise, go into the straight street and inquire in the house of Simeon the tanner for one Saul of Tarsus, for behold, he prayeth, end quote. O cutthroat, ye see, that exquisite villain, that chief of sinners, had easy work on it. You know, I never really thought about it like that, y'all. You know, I never thought about it like that. The author makes a very, very good point. And don't let his sarcasm turn y'all off, okay? This book is 200 plus years old. So let me read the comments here. Jerice Tellis says, just got in. What's up, everybody? Shalom, Jerice, good to see you. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. I'm enjoying these pages, y'all. I'm really, really enjoying these pages because I'm thinking in a way that I never thought before, thanks to this author. So do y'all agree with what he's saying or do y'all disagree? Let me check some more of the chats here. Him and Pell says, I'm beginning. Okay, we already read that. One. All right, so let's continue. I like the author's analytical thinking. This is very, very good. All right, so we're at the bottom of the page on the right. But imagine your man of prayer. Depict him in his true colors at his prayers and in the act of prayer, with all his blushing honors thick upon him, and then say how such an act can be compatible with moral honesty, or how such a man can be entitled to be deemed an honest man. So now let's take this back up to the bottom of the last paragraph. Saul of Tarsus was a blasphemer, right? He was the chief of sinners, right? He said that. Deceit was found in his mouth. Now, if y'all know the story about Paul, y'all should know that what he's saying is true, okay? So why does he get let off the hook, right? But yet the sinless person, and in this case, in the top of the last paragraph, JC, or the Christ figure, was righteous, committed no sin, but yet he got beaten and murdered, right? Hung on the stake, beaten by the Romans, beaten in the Sanhedrin, beaten by the Roman soldiers, right? The crown of thorns, and then hung on a stake, hung on a tree, hung on a cross, whatever your doctrine is. But he was He got it handed to him, right? But a blasphemer, someone like Paul, got off easy. That's the author's point, right? That's the point. So use your own critical mind, your own critical thinking, analytical thinking. All right, so I need to turn the page. We're on page 124 now. Page 124. All right. Top left-hand corner where the cursor is, I'll highlight it. That's where we're going to read from. So let's continue. He either expects some advantage to accrue to himself for his prayer or he does not. If not, he is an idiot and a fool and acts without a motive. Nobody acts without a motive, right? Unless you're crazy, right? Only crazy people don't have a motive. But if he expects to be the gainer by it, that is by his prayer, how is that gain achieved? But by means. Y'all understand that? How is the gain achieved but by means? What's the mean? Blasphemy, murder, rape, right? All the worst things you can do. Let's continue. For the like of which in any other case, a man would deserve to be scouted as a blackleg and a cheat from all honorable society. In other words, somebody who commits these type of crimes, let's say like Paul had committed, deserved to be punished severely and kicked out of society. That's what he's saying. In other words, they make jails for these kind of people. That's what the author is saying. So the motive then, if you want to get a break, do something really, really terrible to people, and then the deity will forgive you, right? That's the author's point. Okay, next paragraph. He warms and writhes his dirty way on hands and knees into the presence chamber of omnipotence. In other words, the chamber of the Most High. He gets on the weak side of the almighty fool, tickles his everlasting beard, whispers the selfish purpose of his soul, and as there must always be a little praise mingled with prayer, though it's not intended, I suppose, for flattery, only it's to tell him what a good capital G-O-D he is, and how infinitely wise and just and holy, and what pure eyes he has got, and that he is sure not to die, and that his kingdom will last forever and ever. And that old gentleman is done over, he's caught, he's in for it, and his omnipotence is at their service. So in other words, the criminal, the murderer, the rapist, this vile person, sweet talks the deity, right? He sweet talks the deity, knowing that the deity is going to forgive him. That's the essence of what he's saying. At least from my point of view. Y'all put your point of view in the comment. If you want to come into the live stream, you're welcome to. So let's read the footnote. A prayer granted implies that something is done in consequence of the prayer. In other words, if the deity answers your prayer, right? If the deity answers your prayer, that means he answered it for a reason. A prayer granted implies that something is done in consequence of the prayer. That would be the murder, the rape, right? Whatever, which otherwise would not have been done, which is the directing mind. All right? The directing mind. Where is the spring of action? Who the Almighty then? Who but the praying knave himself, who, with all his humble sinnership and lie in the dust before capital G-O-D, meekly suggests how he might manage his universe better and shows him how he ought to act. Oh, what a modest creature is a Christian. All right. So I don't know if y'all agree with that, but it is what it is. And let me see how many more pages we have to go. I think we can stop here. We've been going about an hour and 20 minutes, y'all. about an hour and 20 minutes. If y'all want to keep going, put a 1 in the comment section. Otherwise, I think we can stop. I don't want to wear y'all out, okay? So let me finish this paragraph. It continues to read. Now, I'll finish the last paragraph. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all want to continue. If y'all have energy to continue, put a 1 in the chat. If not, we'll wrap it up. Okay, so let's see. Him and Pale writes, so let me look at the comments here. Him and Pale writes, from my understanding, the Messiah was bruised and beaten for the sins of Darrell-El, like in Isaiah 53. He was bruised for our inequities and beaten for our sins. Some say Isaiah 53 is not about the Messiah. Yes, him and Pale, yeah, a lot of people say that. But I think the author's point is that the Christ figure did nothing wrong. So why should he be beaten for any reason, right? Why should he be murdered for any reason? So the question is it justice, right? Because remember, the issue here is justice, right? The topic of this chapter is, let's see, the unjust judge, the unjust judge. So is it justice for the Christ figure to be beaten for the sins of a whole nation? Is that justice? Right? Is it justice? Not only that the Christ figure be beaten, but is it also justice for these people who did, the people in the nation, they committed these sins? Is it justice for them not to have justice meted out on them, but that justice meted out on somebody else? Is that justice, right? The murderer, the robber, is it just for him not to be punished, but the Christ figure be punished? Is that justice, right? So look at it that way. All right, look at it that way, and let me know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all think. So let's continue with our next paragraph. An honest man would say, quote, I want nothing that is to beg of kneeling. Set your heaven open, and I'll be there when honest men are there. But for your straight gate and your narrow way, your passages for beggars, pimps, and parasites, I choose damnation rather. So he's saying an honest man wouldn't want to go into this heaven place, right? Because there's criminals who let off the hook there. All right. And what is the spirit? Which your man of prayer, your straight gate cringer, and your narrow way soul will be likely to bring into the commerce of social life. All right. So he's talking about, and what is the spirit, right? What is the spirit? Which your man of prayer. Okay. What can he bring? What can he add socially to life, given that he's a murderer, raper, deceiver, right? He does no good to society. I think that's the point that he's making. Next paragraph. Who is to expect resistance to tyranny or concurrence in the promotion of any general good? From the sneaking psalm-singing cowards and slaves, whose very devotion itself is villainy. I guess he's talking about the priest right there, right, y'all? Continues, and whose highest notion of right and righteousness is that they will pull their own beggarly souls unto Abraham's bosom and then not reach a cup. Let me repeat that. And then not reach a drop of water to a gentleman in hellfire. That's funny. So he's saying that the sinner in Abraham's bosom saw these people burning up and thirsty, but didn't even offer them a drop of water. So I guess he's saying, how just is that? I'm assuming that's what he means. Okay. If y'all disagree, put it in the chat. All right. So we got 2.5 pages before we complete this chapter. and it's already 11:34. So I think I'm going to stop here at the top of page 125. All right. I want to read this last paragraph. I want to read the last paragraph. Well, the first paragraph. It takes us. Well, wait a minute. Maybe not, because this paragraph on 125 takes the whole page. The paragraph ends on page 126. But I'm kind of interested in it. But my throat feel a little scratchy, y'all. So I'm gonna stop. All right. Okay, so that's going to conclude our live stream. Again, this is the Devil's Pulpit. The chapter is the Unjust Judge, and we will pick up tomorrow on page 125. All right. If you haven't already watched the video yesterday's video, go back and watch it. All of the videos, they're numbered, so you can watch them from beginning to end. So thanks for spending your evening with me. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. Make sure y'all go to Zion Law School and subscribe to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course, okay? Make sure y'all do that. That's going to be a life-changing experience for you. Also, make sure you go to visit us. Make sure you visit us Saturday. The live class that we do is live, is online, and all of y'all are welcome to come. Okay, Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Y'all are welcome to come, observe for free. You can participate fully in the course. I guarantee you it's going to be time well spent. Sometimes, often people come in and they learn things that are life-changing just within one class or even two classes. They come across life-changing information. Again, Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are invited. I am Dr. Yasapa. I'm personally inviting you, so show up. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also, last time, subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibaryath, all right? 101 Ancient Ibaryath. You can get it for $1, right? $1 one-day trial. So it's basically free, right? And $10 per month subscription. And I guarantee you, you're going to want to keep this course for years and years and years to come, all right? ZionLawSchool.org. So that said, Shalawama, I'll see everyone tomorrow. Thanks for spending your time with me this evening. I appreciate it. See you all tomorrow. Let me put the schedule in here. I almost forgot. Let me put the schedule. So tomorrow is Wednesday. So 10 o'clock. No, tomorrow is Tuesday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. So 10 o'clock. Wait a minute. I'm confused. Hold on, y'all. Let me 1 second, y'all. Let me get the schedule for y'all. Make sure I have this right. Give me 1 second. Okay, so today is Tuesday. I wonder why my clock says today. Oh, okay, yeah, today is Tuesday. So Wednesday, 10 p.m. 10 p.m. tomorrow, okay? So here's the schedule. Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. All of these are Eastern Standard Time. All Eastern Standard Time. Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to go through this entire book every day until we finish it. That's how important this topic is to me, to get the information to y'all. And I'm not being paid for this, right? I'm not being paid for it. I'm doing it every day because I think it's so important that everybody should have it. All right? So, Shalawama. See y'all tomorrow night.